7:15 a.m. It is on this 21st day of November. Gloomy looking, dull looking morning, but things are about to get very exciting on set right here at Panari Hotel. My guests are already seated, having tea, some are having water. Kila mtu apendacho. But remember, we're engaging with you on our question of the day. What is the role of gospel artists in promoting nationhood? Kenya celebrates 50 years this year since she attained her independence, and it's all about looking back where Kenya has come from, where we are at 50 years on, but most importantly, everybody's role. And so today the spotlight is on the gospel artists, the gospel industry, to look at their role. What do they feel their role is? Are they fulfilling it as expected? And joining me on set, Juliani. Yay. Kambua.
Hi.
Njugush.
Good morning.
So I'll first give all of you a moment, first tell us your full names.
Wow.
Because yes, so Njugush, Tanza na wewe.
Wow, full names.
Yes.
Oh.
We know you as Njugush, everybody sees you. Yeah?
That's what people use, but full names,
Yeah.
John Jogona Waigoro.
So at least Njogona is still Njugush.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. Those are my full names.
All right.
Yes.
Kambua.
Okay, I'm Kambua Manundu, now Kambua Mathu. Mathu is, I got married.
Yes, you did. Beautiful wedding.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And Juliani.
Mini Julius.
Really?
And the other one.
Julius Owino.
Julius Owino.
Julius Owino, not yet married.
Not yet married. You're hoping the Lord will come through.
The Lord has come.
He's come.
He's come.
So when is the wedding?
Nachanga.
He just advertised his status.
Advertising status.
Searching.
So are you searching? Do we help?
Do.
Platform is very serious. The kind of women watching the show right now.
No, lazima ukue kama mimi niko sawa. Mimi niko sawa, yani mimi niko sorted.
All right, let's get to our discussion. And I'll just start by putting out to you, we're talking about the role of gospel artists. First, as a gospel artist and also being in the gospel industry, not necessarily performing for yourself in Njugush, but your interaction. And you've been around for a while. I remember in Campus.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm young. Don't give up my age, man. I'm pretty young.
Yes. So what separates this industry from the others? What is it about the gospel industry? I'll start with you, Njugush.
Well, how do I start? Why gospel? Why gospel is big?
Yes.
I'd say, well, unfortunately or fortunately, they say Kenya is 80% Christian. Now, well, that's debatable, but we can say 80% they are latent Christians, practicing Christians, but generally Christian. And so, in a way, they subscribe to God, and in a way, music is part of our culture. Hence, why gospel music has been a very integral part. Gospel music has been an integral part of our society, and mostly in the Christian church.
All right. Kambua, on the same, and also what would separate you, differentiate you from another artist who doesn't necessarily do gospel?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what would separate gospel music in general is the fact that gospel is the good news of Christ. And so what would separate gospel music is the fact that we talk about God and the love of God and the benefits of being in God. It's music that is meant to give hope, to bring healing. It's more than just entertainment. It has an entertainment factor to it, and that's what draws people in. But gospel music leaves you with more. So beyond the dancing and the jumping and the lifting of hands and everything, you're left with something to take home with you. And so I guess I would be right in there, being a vessel of that, a channel rather, of that message to the people.
Okay. Juliani, your thoughts?
As far as gospel, I think the personal relationship that I got from Christ when I got born again, all this is just an expression of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's an expression of, it's not when I dance, when I do whatever I do, it's just an expression of my faith and what God mefanya kwa life yangu. So it's more of the personal relationship with Christ first. In the foundation is so now even when it comes to even our country or how things are, we're just living out as when the Christ and to expect,
right?
And of course and spirit and leadership.
So it's really about that powerful message. It's about living out the example and what you're preaching, living it so that people can look at you as a testimony. Let's bring in the country. You know, that's the center stage. Everybody listening to you as artists, having a message in these songs. Kenya heavily polarized along ethnic lines, and we see a lot of that playing out mostly during electioneering times. So the message, and when you sing and when this music goes out and when you preach and all of that, in essence is to make sure that people first are praising God, yes, but at the end of the day come together. But how come it's not been able to achieve a lot of that? Because we still are deeply divided. It's not every day you'll see it, but once in a while those cracks emerge, sometimes very badly, with even killings taking place. But what is the missing, link here? Why is that message not penetrating so deep that these lines are not there anymore? Kambua.
Well, first of all, I think that if I go back to the basis of my faith, Jesus Christ was very political in that he stood, he spoke against these lines, tribal lines, gender lines, class, and all that. So when it comes down to us, where then the gap has been is that probably as Christians we haven't fully taken up walking in the footsteps and the example that Jesus Christ set for us. However, I do think that we have come a long way. We're not there yet, and as you say, when things happen, the cracks are much deeper than we think they are. I think that fortunately, as a new generation continues to come, those lines are getting blurrier over time. If I compare with probably the time, my dad's time and his friends, they were much deeper than they are now. So it might not seem like we're there yet, like there still is a gap, but slowly that gap is being bridged. And I think if we consistently looked at ourselves as a whole unit, and Westgate was a great example of this, when we just saw Kenyans coming out, not caring whether they were Christian, Muslim, black, white, it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
I think slowly we're starting to see ourselves in a united way and realizing that these differences are not bad. It's cool that Juliani is from a different tribe. It's cool that I'm from a different tribe. I think it's our differences that make us beautiful. Our diversity should bring us together and not pull us apart.
It should be something to celebrate, Juliani, because at the end of the day, as Kambua is saying, we've come some way, but we still have a long way to go, because it's an issue of concern when, as Njugush alluded, Kenya is seen as this predominantly Christian society, but yet we kill each other. Neighbor turns against neighbor. We saw that in the other 2007 election. But do you also feel that it's because they're not practicing what they're preaching in the gospel industry?
Hata before we talk about gospel, on Sunday wase kuna machurches kila pale, unajua ploti hapo zile za mabati, but on Monday wase wana overlap. Unajua on Monday watu wanatipua hongo. Najindo Kristo.
The same people.
No, so
even when they're getting into church, they make a wrong turn.
Man, you're going to
wrong turn.
Yeah, wrong turn.
And hooting, crazy.
But nikicheki Bible too, the best example about your Bible is that the first Genesis kwanza about image. God created human beings in his own image. So the foundation, the basis of our existence. Hii ingine ni different, ni personalities and differences, unajua. But when it comes to our country, I think we are the reason why we have come, we have long way is because of the identity. We don't know who we are. Tunatry kujisort. The closest wazazi wangu, the closest they can get ni mtu wao ushago. Hao ndo namjua, the closest way of kujisort when there's a problem. Anarudi kwa ushago. Mimi the closest person nikiwa kwa noma Njugush ni aje buda ni kubaya. Unaona, so the place tumetoka na place tuko ni different. But right now is when we are coming out identity yetu. We are trying to find out who we are. So before we didn't know who we are. Ilikuwa ni post independence na post nini. Na bado ukisoma Isaiah 58 the 6 mpaka 12 inatuambia responsibility as Christians. Unaona, our in a day-to-day life, hata story ya Sunday peke yake. Unaona, so I think nimemalizia Njugush.
Yeah, because Njugush, as is rightfully putting it, a lot of that ends, all that good oneness and Kenyan spirit is in church, and even some churches will sing the National Assembly once, I mean the National Anthem, National Anthem. Once in a while, but after that everything is forgotten. So is it that we are, you know, good-filled people when we are together, when a gospel artist like Kambua, Juliani is performing, we are praising the Lord, lifting the hands, and then we forget about it?
Well, unfortunately, one, we are Sunday Christians, but even then, they even say Nairobi, just Nairobi alone, only, let's say, give and take 18% of the population go to church. So even church is not it. And that's why music and media is a very important part in bringing out bringing us together. Because then we're able to get into people's homes. Because Sunday, guys, is a day for washing clothes, you know. So kids don't even sleeping in and watching church via TV. But, you know, Christ's message is all about love. And if the artist understood that, and even Juliani, Kambua understand that I'm not called to my tribe alone, I'm called to this country and this generation, then I think it's a plus. And I think one of our success stories is, and there are many, I mean, just seeing Emiko's Gay, you'll find a guy in the middle of Kikuyu land singing Emiko's Gay song.
And you have no idea even what she sings sometimes.
We'll read the subtitles. And those are some of the things that we can start appreciating other people's culture and even understand what I'm doing and writing about goes beyond me. So I'm not saying I only stick to my locality. I'll go out there and understand that God placed me in Kenya for such a time as this, and not for my people, but even beyond my people. And if we're able to push that message of saying, you know what, I love you as my I love you as my brother, I love you as I love myself, and you're not any lesser than I am, then we are a plus. And if only Christians became practicing Christians, not that you only be buried in church and married in church or baptized in church, and that's it, but became a lifestyle, then I think we'd have a long, long way. So the 80%, if only 50% practiced this message, then that would be a plus. But even the musicians themselves said, you know what, I will consciously write music beyond my tribe, music that will bring us together. Because the good thing about music, music can either transform or corrupt. And unfortunately, we're not doing music that is transforming, or if we do, we then get airplay. So we need, as musicians, you know, okay, I'm not a musician. Maybe someday Kambua and Juliani will teach me. But
and you can be there saying, you can be
even if I'm doing the intro, Juliani, man, I can do. But anyway, I hope we can use as gospel musicians, and they have been doing it, and we thank God for that. But be more conscious about it. That then I'm doing music and say consciously, Kambua will say, I will look for Juliani to do, you know, Kamba and Luya song, and you know, and say, you know what, we love God, we are one, and you know, etc.
But unajua ikienda just kuongezea kinasema ikiwa, but if it's not about practicing Christians, is not about kutenda tu, it's not about the deeds, it's about when you spend your time in the presence of the Most High God. Ukitoka hapo Buddha, ukiwa chini ya gari utatoka na oil. Unaona? Ukiwa kwa presence ya God utatoka na utatoka na nini. So I think we need to go back to spending time in God peke yake. And then it will translate later. It will translate yani across when we interact with our friends and we interact with our neighbors. I find one struggle that mpaka tunaweka mabandera kwa magari ndio iwe. It shouldn't be a struggle. It should be just a day-to-day thing, as long as we spend time in our closet with our God.
I think if we actually were intentional in what we're doing, because if I think about it, it does not make sense for me to sing with the intention only of promoting my tribe, because if given just like 5 years, or let's say when I have my children, they'll be children are when and not if when and not if when I have my kids, there'll be a mixed blend of something. And then their children will be a mixed blend of something else. It's being broken down so much that at some point it will be almost impossible to say I am a Kamba, I am a Kikuyu. So then having that in mind, which is the bigger picture, then we'll be able to say confidently that I'm a Kenyan. I may not be able to break it down for you, but I'm a Kenyan. And so what I'm doing, my music, my art, my you know, in the gospel industry is to promote and is to be a blessing to the Kenyan community and not to my village, not to my people.
Yes, to everybody.
To everyone,
and looking at the gospel artists in the country, do you feel they're playing that role? And actually, let's start by defining that role. For each of you, what do you think your role is? The position in a hold kama Juliani, you have a lot of fans, a lot of people come out to your concerts. When you're doing something or promoting a product, they will be in support of that. So what role do you feel you have as a musician, as a Kenyan, to build your nation, build your Kenyan spirit?
Just being me, unajua. I think the only role that I have is being me, because we tunafikiria sana about this thing. It's not that
complicated.
It's not that complicated. The greatest lesson I've learned here, and I go back to Genesis, about the image of God. When God alisema, let's create man in our own image, just being me and showcasing that every time I'm playing my role. Just being kusimama hapo peke yake, I'm showcasing my role. I'm using that opportunity God amepatia ya ku of course to spread message yake, whatever. But role yangu basically I'm going back to the issue of identity. Spreading the whole idea of identity. Young people, we need to redefine who we are as Kenyans. We need to redefine who we are. We know where we've come from. We know our struggles. We know the immense.
Yes,
Juliani.
Buddha. Ni panari. The immense opportunities that are available in this country. We know. So the only thing that we need to sit down as young people, or even amongst ourselves as young Christians, to redefine where we want our country to go, especially now 50 years. How do we connect these people? How do we organize young people together? So we have created platforms to do that. So that we organize and start a new conversation amongst ourselves.
Yes.
Because we know the country is going well. We know Vision 2030 is happening. But we need to have deliberate actions towards that so that it will faster. And also one of the things that our role, just to finish, the value system. The Christian family, or the Christian, our biggest responsibility is value system, instilling the value system in our people. Because unaweza kuwa na skyscrapers, Machakos inaenda poa, yani ma skyscraper nini, wasa wana drive nini, but you still
bado unahama Machakos.
Do. Na bado uko na gate ya chuma, because you don't want your neighbor to nini. Because you cannot connect with each other. So we need to instill the value system, even in Vision in 30, even in our constitution, the value system, so that waswasi overlap, the value system so that nisika kudunge kisu sababu, the value system so that corruption increase. So our role as Christians and gospel artists is instill the value system in our peeps.
Amen. Yes, very powerful point.
That's a number.
Well, I'll actually start where Juliani started, is playing my role, being myself. You know, there's only one Kambua who can play the role that God created me to play. And the problem is when I do not know where I'm supposed to be, and so that role, you know, it remains empty. No one can step in and be Kambua. And sometimes we waste so much of our time and our energy I'm trying to be Sophia for the rest of my life, and I cannot be you. I do not have the gifts and abilities that you have. But if you can play your role and I can play you play your role, then we move forward. The other thing that I recently learned, and I had this being said by Mensa Otabil from Ghana, he talked about being a generational thinker, meaning that when I'm done, I want to leave this place better for the next person who comes in. One of the biggest problems we have as Africans is, you know, to have that attitude of, you know, I've really struggled to make it in this industry. So the next person who comes needs to struggle as much. And not thinking, how would I have wanted to find this gospel industry? I'd have wanted certain things to work in a certain way, to be more efficient. So I'll leave it better for the next generation of gospel artists that are coming in. It's part of being a generational thinker, always knowing that there's someone who is coming after me. You know, if our parents decided to let us have a hard time, as they did, where they went to school without shoes, we would have to struggle you know, to unnecessarily to progress. But in order for our country to move forward, let's be generational thinkers and say, you know, we can make this, we can do the gospel industry in a way that certain struggles, the people who come after don't need to encounter. Let them face different challenges, but not the same ones. So we're mark timing at the same place.
Okay, Njugush.
Well, mine will be a challenge and just picking up from what they're saying, and just to hammer in intentionality, in the sense of that gospel artists have to be intentional in what they're going to do. And say, you know what, beyond driving people to Christ, talking about faith, talking about righteousness, etc. and etc. I need to be intentional in spreading the message of love, but more so even the social message. We're not of this world, but we're in this world. And so I would want to encourage musicians to say, be intentional. That Kenya is my country. How can I be intentional in projects of bringing people together, seeing each other as one, loving one another as they love themselves, so that then you know, Kambua will intentionally, and I like what they've done, all of them in different you know, cases. They did one song with Daddy Owen. It's different languages, 6, 7 tribes. I have no idea what they say, but I sing along. Okay, but it's intentional projects. Now, she could have done her own album and done nothing about it. I mean, just do Swahili Kamba. But she intentionally said, you know what, I want to be part of this. I mean, Juliani the same. So that then we're intentional in saying, I can sit back and say, I mean, Juliani is doing a tour, agriculture thing, helping young people. Now he can go and decide, because I'm a Owino, I will be on that part of town. But you know, he's been to this part, he's going to Mombasa, and so he's being very intentional, saying, as a Christian, as a gospel musician, I will go beyond my tribal cocoon, beyond my comfort zone, and say, I will push myself as Ben Gedai. All my songs are Kikuyu. But you know what? I'll go perform in the heart of Kisumu. How? It doesn't matter, I'll figure it out. And those are the things we need to be able to do as gospel musicians. Say, intentionally, beyond being a Christian, I want to be able to say, I've been placed for such a time as this. So then how can I, as she's saying, for my generation, how can I bring my people together? How can we get, and you see, when people are together, if you put people together and bring that unity, then you're able to do more and move faster. Now, Vision 2030 will be a blur if we don't think as one and come as one. And so, you know, let it not just be we are one, but very intentional.
You know, that is very powerful, Njugush, because I was actually just going to go to that. Because at the end of the day, some gospel artists will be accused of skirting around issues, will sing, feel good, but at the end of the day, how intentional, you know? Are you just singing to get us to be happy and bury our heads under the sun and assume everything is okay? Or are we playing an active role in actually ensuring that things are working properly in the country, that we're setting that example? And also very important what you touched on, the value system.
And even Jesus himself, very, I mean, he'd go to the tax collector. He was he would have stayed in his cocoon, Jerusalem. But even the Great Commission urges us to, you know, to go beyond our comfort zone. And so, you know, he was a prostitute, he was with, you name them, the people who are considered outcasts, you know, the Samaritans. And so for us, we should be like, if Jesus went out there, if Jesus did and ministered to, then I as a gospel musician need to write, need to take myself out there to do the same. And sometimes you don't have to go personally, your music itself, by just sitting in a studio and doing a song with 5 different tribes. I would like to see Juliani do a collabo with a Turkana. You know,
everything is going to Turkana, Juliani.
Nina tafanya hivyo na more. One of the things that and also more, because even when you talk about we also need to talk about ile angle, even the justice angle.
The
justice. Like, you know, there's a time when you talk about Christianity, there's a time in Christianity noma imetokea, people are segregated, there is marginalization. The church stood up and did something about it. Did something about it when we saw some other people walikuwa na nini. But of course, post 2007, hata yo before 2002, we lost our weight because we started taking sides. We started taking sides as Christians. So the justice angle, the justice that Christ alikuwa na preach. We even forgot about that. So I think we need to get it back. As much as we preach love, let's also preach. Let's also preach that 2007 people died and they need justice. Let's talk about that, and let the church talk about that. Let's not pretend, oh, unajua unajua, because that's what imetufikisha up in the first place.
Yes.
But even then, if you're talking about the church talking about justice, church becomes a place of healing, not a place of judgment. And so we should be able to be very careful. It needs to be a balance. Because like today I was reading, you know, Christ also, you know, God makes the sun rise on the evil. Leo jua inang'ara kwa wale waliuana jana, by the way, you know.
Which is, I think, a tricky balance what you're bringing out, because whilst it's good, it's a place of healing, but also what he's saying is very important, because we can't always be the people also in church. We are saying, okay, we are okay, we are moving on, we are happy. God is good. At the end of the day, there are issues that need to be addressed.
Not past judgment. For me, it's not
judgment. It's viboko. Okay. Viboko, mnafanya nini kwa nyumba ya Mungu wangu? Kwa baba yangu mnafanya nini? You're not supposed to be selling stuff here. You're not supposed to be selling stuff.
Where do we draw that?
So my question is, Juliani, mimi niliwa jana nimekaa mchache leo utadu.
Hauka uliwa jana Mungu anakusort. But kama uko na damu kwa mkono, kama uko na damu, if you saw the blood in your hands, if you saw mpe Kaisari kilicho chako, umeka nini kwanza ukiwa na damu kwa mkono, first buda nini mbaya, umeumia kwanza tunakupangu hata tukupangu.
Okay, good. That's what I thought
karao 999 kwanza unakaa unachekiwa.
You're right about a church being a hospital, but it's also an institution that administers justice, and I guess that's a tricky balance we're talking about. And the problem is that unfortunately we've leaned over to one side where we want to be right by people. So we want to tell them that politically correct. So we want to tell them that, you know, it's okay. Let's not talk too much about. After all, it's church. It's not politics. It's not government. And really, you cannot separate the two. You can't. They're so intricately.
Just to give you a small example, so that when I was starting out as a Christian, the only thing that made me not be a Christian musician ilikuwa inanifanya nifikirie, because everybody in the Christian circles, Mungu tuokoe, tunakushukuru na jamaa na njaa, nobody said Mungu na njaa bana, Mungu na njaa ni sort, unaona, nobody, everyone, tunajua utatuweza, unaona. But when I came up with my first single, I remember even you guys came to pick me in my house when na Moses walikama wakanichukua.
Juliani, na siku hizi bana umetuchorea by zote.
So one of the things
manager.
So when my first single came out, everybody said that the single is not Christian enough. But it was talking about some of the things as a young Christian I was facing at that time. It was so big in the young Christian circle that it led me to become who I am. They related to me. It wasn't haikuwa ni makeup that uko na kakidonda kangu hapa kwa east side aka kapiko. So mimi sasa naambia wase napaka makeup ni feature, unaona. So we focus so much on featuring the things that we need to do
that are wrong, instead of actually talking about them.
Which is what I was talking about. Which is what we're talking about. We're not of this world, but we're in this world. And so even from a biblical point, we should be able to deal and address those issues that we're going through, including tribalism in our own country. And the good thing about you guys, I mean, music is a powerful tool. It's transformative. It goes beyond that. And today, you know, the president's speech will only be news goes, but music, I mean, how many stations do you have? How many TV stations do you have? That then, if you're able to put this message and package it in a song, then it gets legs, it gets wings, it goes beyond. I mean, social media, you name it, it's a ringback tone. I mean, how many people have your song Kambua? You know, how many people have your song Juliani? It goes beyond. It doesn't matter. It's still there. And that's what I'm saying, when you realize that God has given me a tool, a calling and a gifting that can transform or corrupt. Then you start thinking different. And as Kambua is saying, you think generation, that then I will leave a legacy. One of my songs changed a whole generation. One of my concerts changed a whole. And if we start thinking that, other than CD sales, you know, hits, downloads, then we're saying we're thinking, as Kambua is saying, generational.
And also what Juliani was touching on, also maybe gospel artists need to have that more of, yes, we are praising God, and that should continue to be the part of the music, but also infused with that national agenda, the issues of the day, and really having them truly discussed, truly coming to light in a way that we are not hiding or ignoring. But he also touched on something very important when gospel artists choose to take sides, especially in terms of politics. I'd like to hear from you your views, because politics is one of the biggest things that has led to the divisiveness we've seen in the country. Everybody forgets everything else, goes out the window, and we start reading from tribal scripts and coalition scripts and who you are aligned to. Should gospel artists go that way? Should we be seeing Kambua saying Mimi niko na Juliani?
I think it's a very touchy issue, but
Kambua.
I think everyone has a right to have a political and should have a stand.
Yes.
You know, as far as I support so and so, I believe in so and so. However, I realize what kind of influence I have as a gospel artist, and that would probably make me careful in how I endorse certain things, including politicians. If my public endorsement of something is going to bring more division than togetherness, then it will honestly not kill me to have that opinion between me and my ballot box and God. It will not kill me. For me, that's how I look at it, and not to hit on, say, Juliani will decide I'm gonna go on a public platform and say that I support so and so. It's just, this is the way that I have chosen to take, is that I think that everything I do should always be for to benefit people, should be in a beneficial way, and if it causes people to stumble, then I should think twice about it. You know, there was an illustration in the Bible of if my eating of meat is going to make Juliani fall, then I don't have to eat meat in front of Juliani. It does not mean that I'm living a double life, double standards. It just means that I can do my thing. I can still be wise, wise as a serpent, still be wise, still have my stand, still believe in my whoever candidate that I'm supporting, but I don't necessarily have to take that public platform.
And as you both also answer the same question, other than those who will come out and say I'm supporting so and so, we'll see in political rallies they will come and perform. So the fact that they're there, others might interpret that to mean, oh, this person is supporting so and so. So should even gospel artists steer clear of those kind of situations, that if it's a rally and you know people are going to be here talking about certain ideologies or things that you perhaps would want to not to be associated with, or even have people look at you in a certain way? Njugush.
Wow, that's a hard one, man.
It is hard.
It's one of those things that, but as Kambua said, it's a personal conviction. But you're entitled to your opinion. The most important thing, and if for any artist, it should be based on conviction, not bought. That today the highest payer gets my endorsement, then that becomes you start selling the very gift that God has given you. But yes, if I'm convicted and I say this guy, I can vote for so and so. Juliani, I like Juliani because he's, you know, he speaks English nowadays. You know, Juliani is a man of principle. Squeezy Hana Jan, Akenda Pale Tatusam, you know, out of conviction. That then he's not even actually giving me money. I am putting money in his campaign. Then my endorsement is not based on who pays. It's out of what he stands for and what I believe in. But then, as Kambua says, it has to come to a point of you and God. Say, you know what, God, you've entrusted me with this office. You've given me favor with so many people. What did you want me to do? And if God gives you the go-ahead of, you know, get out there, make noise for such a time as this, then do it. But and that's why it comes again to a place of where Juliani was saying, with your relationship with God, and you hear God telling you, you know what, because there are times when it comes, God says, you know what, I need you to be the mouthpiece for so and so, for this and this, because this is what I want to do this time. This is the guy I've chosen. Then that is different. But when we hear your check, you're given a check of 6 million, then it goes down to the dollar. But if God in his own way, and again, if you're in communion with God and speaks to you and tell you, you know what, for such a time as this, like Esther, make it public, go for it. Then I'll but
I'm joking. I'm joking because even in the scriptures, one of the things that the music was, the reason why music was so powerful, even the ilikuwa lead was in the war. The first people walikuwa line ilikuwa musicians. Musicians are that powerful. But that being said, everything you take in sides as a Christian or as a musician, as a it doesn't matter.
But just a question. 20 ulikula?
Do. Do. Buddha. I'm not not that cheap. You know?
Sorry. Kama checking ingekuwa
more money. Lazima oversee the blood of Christ. Anyway, so the politics in our country sahi ilikuwa polarized sana. Waseo afikiri si objective. They are not objective. They are not. So hata ukisema if right now hata Mungu amekuambia na roho yako yote yani wewe support Njugush. People don't want to think like maybe there's something here. People like jamaa ameachiwa. Unaona? So our politics the way we conduct politics kawaida is the one that inatuletea normal.
But that's why it's important to hear from God, because if God has told you, the same God who gave you that privilege or favor with those guys, even after, will still make sure and ensure that you still have
I think
that.
it goes back to the value system.
Yes.
If my value system with whoever anasimama saa hiyo zinapatana, then of course I'll support them, because it's my responsibility right now. The same way it's my responsibility to lead people to a certain process, so that even if I have that stand, at least I can apologize if I'm wrong. Unaona, kuliko kusemanga unajua sisi, unaona uko hapa yani wewe uko side zote mbili. At least have a stand. When you have a stand, the good thing
which
about
is not bought.
Which is not bought.
So what are we agreeing that we should not have artists going to music, gospel artists performing in these campaigns?
I don't think we're saying that, Sophia.
No. What are we saying? What is the position?
According to their
conviction.
Yes.
It has to come from a personal conviction. And then from my relationship with God and He who has entrusted me with song and favor, if I say gives you a go ahead, go sing, well and good.
Will that not be abused, or it's up to them?
It's up to them. That's what I'm saying. Juliani said it very well. You have to be at a place of intimacy with God to hear God. That if God tells you go, go. Because there are places people take themselves. And later, people, if you ask those gospel musicians, they've come and said, that money came in like this, but I cannot tell you where it went.
You can't account for it.
In fact, it came in like this and went with ×2 what it came with. So it has to be a place of intimacy with God, where you hear God and God tells you go, stop, don't, do. And Kambua, want to Kambua, if God tells Kambua, you know what? Juliani is standing for governor of Nairobi. Amen?
Governor.
Nice.
Oh,
by the way. But, you know, if Kambua, God tells, you know what, I want you to be the mouthpiece. And Kambua refuses. Even her ministry after that, because of her disobedience to God, will suffer.
Okay. Let's just to finish. When we were starting out the music industry, personally, even and as I to my example to my music, for the longest time since I started doing gospel music or being a Christian, I had a mandate from God on what particular issues, what particular angle I should take.
Yes.
When it comes to engaging His people and a space, a demographic that He gave me as a Christian. And I can say, these are your people. These are the people that you're going to reach out to. So, going back to the relationship with God and going back to Him giving you a vision of who you are supposed to be. And as much as we would like every artist to be politically aware, to be not everybody is supposed to do that. Let's not get it wrong. Not every artist should be. Kuna wale artists, they are supposed to heal.
Yes.
Kuna wale artists wanafaa kuenda ku evangelize. But kuna wale kama sisi tunapenda makelele. So everybody has a mandate.
Play your role.
Everybody has a mandate and a role and a place to play. Kuna wale ni prophet, kuna wale ni nini. Hiyo scripture ile prophet nani? Teacher nani. So everybody has a mandate. So let's not get it twisted that everybody should just do it because everybody's doing it.
Yeah. I love somebody here on Twitter at Johari saying that the condition of the church determines the condition of the nation. Our time is running out, but before we do get winding up the show, one very important question. I was talking to, there's been a little bit of disharmony, some tension in the coast a while back with the Christians and the Muslims, and I remember talking to a sheikh and a pastor over the same. And one of the things, I remember the pastor I spoke to, it was after they talked about wanting to be given guns. One of the things he said was that in reference to the other religion, Muslims were saying that they'd go out and in preaching their message, it was very negative to the Christians. It painted the Christianity religion in bad light. And also, of course, we've seen and we've heard even on radio stations, Christian stations, where the Muslim religion is also painted, Islam is painted in a very negative light. So in a country that we're still trying to figure that and bringing everybody together, as a gospel artist, being in this industry, how do you as you do your music and as you preach and interact with people and hoping to pass that positive message, ensure you're not alienating those that are not necessarily of your faith? Yes, Njugush.
Well, I think any religion, regardless, Diniam, Sambwa, Islam, the only way you can win someone best is love. And if you can love on them, they say in the Bible, you know, when you love your enemies, like keeping a coal over the head. Yeah, there we go. And that's what Christ is about. You know, if you love, if you speak a message of love, then they will not have any otherwise but love you.
So we should not have messages of antagonizing the other people who are not.
So let it be love. I mean, love is the only language that, you know, cuts across. I mean, it disarms. It, you know, if you love on me, I mean, it will be very hard for me to do, you know. And even the Bible says if they do this, ultimately, you know, if they slap you on this side, ultimately you want to slap back. But you know what? Turn back. When you slap me, when you turn around, even you have bichanganyikiwa. Hey, anichapi tena. You know, and that's what love is about. Anyway.
And I was just going to say that the reason that Jesus was so effective on earth is because, and the reason he was able to walk with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and whoever, is because he lived love, a life of love. He did not condemn them, and yet he was the Son of God, like the most powerful man on earth. He did not condemn them. And they were drawn to him because of that love. There is no way we can be effective, preach, minister through music without love. There is no way. I think that as soon as, you know, even a person of a different religion comes up to me guns blazing, my walls will go up. And vice versa. If I go to them guns blazing for, you know, you guys don't believe in the truth, walls go up. But if I live a life of love, a lot of time, even without standing on a pulpit to preach, people will walk up to you because there is something that they are drawn to about you. And I think that if, as Christians in this nation and as gospel artists intentionally lived out love, we would make that difference.
Okay.
I think we have too much expectations. I think we have too much expectations. We are a young country, and we are different. Most yani seen what different sana from different tribes, different religion, different beliefs. You know, so we are a place in our country where tunataka kujifanya. So na mimi niko na experience na kupika chapati. So when before kupika chapati, you have to usicheke buda in cooking class. Unaona uko na chumvi hapo, uko na unga, uko na maziwa, uko na maji moto, uko na chapo. To taste. Pia uweka carrot. So when you put them together and uongeze maji, and then you
need it.
You need inaitwa kneading. You need. The more you need it, by the time ndio ikuwe strong na ishikane, lazima ikuwe na mavitu ndogo ndogo huko. Unaona, lazima uibonde ndio hizo the intention of that kutoa pumzi, so that kusikuwe na pumzi ndani hiyo dough. Unaona, so the more you have to beat it, and we are in the process of being kneaded. You know, this country in that place. So we are putting all these people together, people who didn't know who they are. The only place they could fall to is back to their religion. The only place they could fall to back is their tribe. The only place they could fall back to is Juliani. So now we are in a process of putting all these people together and forming a country in the next, that it will exist in the next 50 years, and that it will exist in the next 100 years. So we shouldn't have high expectations, kiddo. We should relax, you know, and enjoy and enjoy the process of being needed. And I guarantee you, next year or 2 years or 3 years later, we'll be in a better place as a country. As long as we have deliberate efforts, deliberate effort, you have to make sure that we become together despite our differences.
Do you sometimes get the feeling that some of the artists and even pastors need a reality check? Because some people sometimes feel that they're not identifying with the reality, the situation on the ground, in as far as the real challenges people are facing. While it's about faith, so you're believing in a situation that is not, hoping it will become. Things are thick now, but is there that connectivity? Because if the state, and I want us to wind up on that note, as you all also tell me, when this person says the condition of the church determines the condition of the nation, is the church in the right place in terms of where it is being able to tell the heart and the pace of the country to be able to play such an integral role as this person is indicating on this one. Do you sometimes feel like the church is in its own world, in its own balloon, where everything is perfect, bubble, perfect, to know everything is perfect, and yeah, everybody else then feels, how do I relate as we wind up? So you say all of that with your closing sentiments in Njugush.
I mean, as I said, we're not of this world but in this world, and so we need to, and they see the church is seen as, it's meant to be the most neutral, most representative of God's government on earth. And so in turn, I think the church needs to think beyond heaven. We're not going to heaven tomorrow. Between now and then, what will it, what happens? And how do I play that, active role in politics, in empowering the youth, in empowering the women, and play that supportive role. And you see, the good thing with the church is meant to be a place where it's corruption-free, is meant to be equal to all, love for all. And so it's a challenge that pastors need to think, how am I, beyond transforming people for eternity, for now, what am I doing here that makes me relevant to this generation? Because the minute you become irrelevant and speaking to my life now, I'm jobless. So what are you doing about it? Okay, I am, I'm jobless. I don't have a wife. I don't have a husband. I mean, different needs. We're going into an electioneering year. What are you teaching us? And so on and so forth. So I think the church needs to say, what is our role in terms of our social responsibility towards the society we're called into? And I think pastors beyond, and maybe sometimes that's why employ a pastor in charge of social justice. We're living in this society. What can we do to impact the society? So other than me, I'll preach the Bible, but you make sure, as much as we preach the Bible, that we are relevant, impacting and showing love into this. And what is love? Love is coming down to my situation. Like Christ came to the situation of, came down and spoke to the prostitute at her level. Went to the Samaritan woman who had different, as at her level. Meet me at my level. Talk to me. What am I? The tax collector. I know this is what you do. How can I? And so for us is, how can we be relevant to this generation in different situations, other than just saying Jesus, 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 heaven, 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 hell, hell, hell. Come to me and find me at my place. Don't compromise the gospel. Christ never did. He spoke it as it is. He was asked. So now, does that mean, someone was trying to evade, taxes? Say, no. What is Caesar give to? And so it's to be relevant and play that supportive role to the government, because then you can't separate the two, as Kambua said earlier. You can't separate the church and the government. They are one.
They are one. Kambua.
My mom has always told us, don't ever be too heavenly bound for no earthly good. You're just heaven. You're just heaven.
Every
forgetting
day.
that you live here on earth, physical, with real issues. The church, Christians, we definitely need to do more. I must say that there are men and women of God who are doing amazing things and are in touch with reality, but more needs to be done. More of us need to be engaged. Not just a few can carry the weight of the issues that we have in this country as far as social justice is concerned, poverty, and all sorts of things that we're dealing with as a country. As Juliani has said, we're young. We're only 50. Very young as a country. There's a lot to be done. The year of Jubilee is so significant because even when you look at it, the biblical history of it was a year when the past is forgotten. If you had any debts, they're forgiven. It's gone. You start over. It's a fresh start. This is such a beautiful place that we're at. So if we decide, okay, fine, we haven't done enough in the past, but we can start over. In this year of Jubilee as a nation, we can start over and say, what is it that as the church we can do actively, practically, not burying our heads in the sand, as you said, like an ostrich, and saying,
everything is fine.
God bless you, everything's fine, Jesus is coming. Yes, he is, but before he comes, while we are here, what can we do to be effective and to leave a mark on earth?
Perfect. Finally,
I think we have me before nilikuwa na point finger kwa church sana. But I realized we have done a lot. The church, the pastors, yani unafaa tu pigwa makofi, because even ebu niangalia na ka church kweli. Sika church, no, sikai kama but a person like me nowadays can go mbele ya God. There's a time every day niko naenda kwa church, mimi peke yangu niko kwa church kwa nini? Mtu ananifungulia before kijana unaenda wapi? Unaenda wapi hapa? No, but nowadays, a person like me, and a lot of young people have a space right now in the church. A lot of young people have. So we are in a good place. Church has been able to go out and reach out to them need in the society. Like my church, Nairobi Chapel, that's what we do. And I've the same example in other churches. So we're in a good place.
I think the church, all I'm saying is intentionality. Intentionality. Just saying that this year as a church, we're going to make sure we start 50 projects and make sure we see them to a completion.
We are doing that. We are doing that. Actually, the buyer. The only thing that equals that Wakristo wengine, Wakristo basically, wale wanakamili church on Sunday, wanaacha hiyo kazi mapasta peke yake. Bora wameacha sadaka yako po.
But you see, if the church puts a system in place to involve the congregants, to say, like now, at chapel, say, you know what, we are trained. I go to Nairobi Chapel too, it's my church. But then there's an intentional program and system to engage the congregants to do that. So that then every church has a system that it's not, yours is not Sunday, yours is not, your concern is not the offertory only and growing that, but then saying, now these are people, how do we engage them to be transformative, or rather to be agents of transformation in our society?
It's happening. But let's not forget that every church has a mandate. Let's not forget, not every challenge them. Not every church is supposed to be going out. Watoi nini.
Of different callings.
Maybe there's a church which is strength yake ni hii. So let's not be hard to on churches. But on finishing, I think we need to work on our identity as Kenyans. The young Kenyans in this country need to work on their identity.
Right.
Be it you're in the church or you're outside the church, we need to go back and work on our identity and redefine who we are. So that in the next 50 years, when our children inherit this land from us, alifanya kazi. We need to redefine who we are.
And Juliani, you need to say that identity is found in Christ. He who created you, because he knows the purpose why he created you. You can try to do it by yourself, but you didn't create yourself.
That's why you altar call signs do say. Come back to Christ. Your identity.
Wait, you have a tempo banner. This guy has spoken too much English, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia.
Such a pleasure hosting you guys, and a very amazing and deep conversation we have had this morning. For those watching, I think it has put a challenge on everyone, and more so those who are prescribed to this faith, to Christianity, that it has to be intentional. We cannot bury our heads in the sand, and at the end of the day, that identity as Christians and that relationship, very important. And what of course we can all agree is that the next 50 years for Kenya are rich and are bright, and the potential is huge. It's all up to us and what we do. So I wish you the best as you continue with what
can maybe these guys agree to do a collab here?
Yeah, you can say it right now on national TV, so we can say you've said it first on KTN Morning Express.
The project?
I don't mind, but as long as you feature me, as long as I'm in that
I'm also want to be featured.
Kambua and Juliani.
Okay, sawa. Thank you so much.
On Morning Express.
On Morning Express, and Sophia featured.
Then Panari will give us a venue.
And then we have a tag over there, Morning Express, going on the screen like this.
You started being intentional and practical.
Intentional.
Okay.
You being Nini, I'll think Kikuyu.